Hey guys, I am back again with another video. This is another build video. We are continuing with the alphabet build challenge where we're building a mini home or a tiny home, I should say, not a mini home, for a different letter of the alphabet. And today's letter is G. And so for this build in particular, I went for G for grandma. So it's gonna be kind of like a old-timey, very grandma-esque kind of build. So, but also a cheery grandma was what I was going for, really. I wanted to try and utilize like stuff that I typically don't use because I feel like they seem kind of outdated. Like this couch in particular, I never use this couch because I hate it because I'm not a big pattern person. I just don't like a bunch of different patterns. I feel like I'm so repetitive when I'm talking about these builds and like utilizing different things that I normally don't use and everything. But that's basically what it is. It's true. So there's definitely a lot more patterns being used. I think I've used a lot more of like the different things that kind of look a little aged or, not as vibrant because I felt like that's kind of gives grandma house kind of vibes more so because obviously sometimes, at least not all the time, they may be living in their home for quite some time. So it definitely probably is faded a little bit. So that's kind of what I was going with. I struggled so much with trying to utilize some things that I just haven't really used before while still like trying to be and like come up with something that like makes sense. And so I went back and forth so many times with like so many different things. It was a real struggle for me. I'm not gonna lie. This is just not something that I normally kind of use as far as decoration and everything. So I struggled somewhat with kind of figuring out exactly what things really went. But I also, like I said, I wanted it to be like bright. I didn't want it to be like dark and gloomy the whole time. So I really tried to brighten it up with utilizing some whites and creams and stuff like that to really fit in the area or for this build, not just the area in general. But I tried my best to make it look and make sense. So I apologize for how much I go back and forth and back and forth with different things. It's just the indecisiveness in me really like reigned supreme when I was doing this build. Clearly I can't even decide on a lamp, but I wanted it to be kind of like a cozy vibe in this room and just a room that had kind of like your antique kind of look to it, but also, you know, still nice enough and have things that like can still be utilized and make it so that like if you were to want to use this kind of build with gameplay and stuff, you would still have things that you can use for like entertainment. So like I still put a TV in there. I have something that involves music, but like obviously it looks old and everything. And I always feel like, especially when it's like a weird shape like this, it's always a bit of a struggle for me to also make it so that it's not looking crazy. And as you can see, I'm clearly struggling a lot with the kitchen and figuring out how to utilize the curve in the kitchen because I was able to just put the couch and that curve for the living area, but for the kitchen, I didn't really want to have to put it this close to the bathroom, but I just couldn't figure out a better way to kind of utilize the space in the area because I don't know how to put a kitchen along a curve like that. It's just in a real world you could probably do it obviously because you can have like makeshift countertops and cabinets and stuff like that, but in the Sims it's not really too functional for that. So I figured I'd just add in the dining area to that area and then have the kitchen closer to the bathroom than what I would have liked. But honestly, it would have something would have to be close to the bathroom, either the dining area situation or the kitchen area. So honestly, the kitchen is probably better when I think about it now to have there. So I clearly used a lot of the cottage living things for the kitchen and dining room area. it really annoyed me to put the light there because I feel like it doesn't like really, it's not really centered with the area in the room and it's not centered with the table, but I also wanted it so that it could be utilized for the light in the kitchen and in the living room. So that's why I kind of put it off a little bit, but still is a little irritating that it's not like centered with the room or the table, but it is what it is at the end of the day. It's fine. And obviously we have to put some stuff for the cat because, grandma needs some companionship and her companion will obviously just be a cat. Or, I mean, you could do a dog, but I also did the cat scratcher, so, we're gonna do a cat here. So I just continued with utilizing like the cottage living stuff and the yellow theme, or at least yellow theme-ish, but because obviously the walls are not yellow. But I continued that with the bathroom as well. So yellow and pink it was. Um, and so, oh, I didn't even realize I do actually change the tiling. So maybe it's not pink. Or no, it looks like we do go back to pink. So I completely forgot about that. I thought I just left it with wallpaper, but I do seem to change it, and I honestly don't know what I kept it as. So it's gonna be a surprise for both of us because I don't remember. I think I was probably trying to incorporate some more different colors and stuff like that in the area or in the room. So that's probably what I was doing. But it looks like that's what we ended up going with, I mean. And at this point, besides the bedroom, I pretty much have everything done. So I started kind of wanting to try and include some decoration bits and pieces. I feel like that's always the part that normally when doing builds on my own, tend to forget and tend to not do. But then, it does help kind of fill in the space a little bit because especially with like I said before, of like this is such a kind of weird build with the structure wise, and so there's a lot of spaces and spots that I feel like are just empty, and so I try to do my best to fill in those emptier looking or feeling spots and stuff like that to make it so that it wasn't as empty, I guess. And obviously, again, we have to think about the cat. I honestly, I'm gonna be honest, I don't recall or remember if I did playtest it. I did try to playtest most of the builds that I did just to make sure, because I think the first couple I realized after the fact that they weren't that functional, or there was something like messed up or like blocking certain areas in the houses. So I think I did probably playtest it, but honestly, I'm gonna be honest, I don't fully remember because I did do this build a little while ago. And honestly, nowadays my memory's not that great. So, like I said, I'm just kind of doing some cluttering here and there to fill in some of the empty spots because I just felt like that wall was so empty, and like the same thing with like the front door area. The fireplace is so close and it's so bulky, but like the front door area was really bare, so it was really hard for me to figure out what I wanted to put in there without making it feel too overwhelming. And so again, with the bedroom, we're using cottage living. I think I mainly used like basecamp and cottage living honestly with this build, because I feel like cottage living does have a lot of those like antique looking things. Ultimately, because that's kind of the vibes that I was going for with that. So that's what I went for. Because sometimes I wanted to add in certain things that like were a little bit more on the fun side, but then I just felt like I don't know if that would be like good to put in there, just because I don't really know if it would really match with the rest of the vibe of the rooms and everything. So that's basically what I kind of went with, was just sticking to cottage living. I know I did put in a few of the I can't even remember what it's called now, but the horse ranch pack, I can't remember what it's actually properly called, but I did include some of those things because I think like just like the wood vibes also kind of give off antique kind of vibes. So I thought that helped a good bit with the build as well, with adding some of those pieces and stuff like that. Because I think that's another thing that I kind of struggle with, is like finding certain things that like tie together from various packs. Because I feel like sometimes if I use too much of one pack, it's going to look a little silly if I try and add in aspects of another pack, because it may be a very different theme or a different vibe. And so that's something that I always struggle with. So I try not to just stick to one pack, but then a lot of times that just ends up happening, especially if it's something so niche. So here I'm just, again, trying to add in a little bit more clutter to the walls just so that they didn't look as bare and everything, to just fill in the space a little bit more. I really struggled with like figuring out what made sense, but then also didn't make it like seem like it was too much going on at the same time. Because I just felt the need to add in clutter, because I also felt like I feel like that's kind of like a grandma-esque thing, is to have like a lot of things all over the house and everything, but with all of the different angles and sizes of the walls and everything, it was just so hard to find things that actually fit. I could have downsized some things and changed some things as far as that, but I didn't want to like do too much of that, because sometimes just like the looks a little crazy when you're downsizing and doing that to a lot of things. So I didn't want to do that too often, but I also wanted to include a couple of bits and pieces to kind of show like some interests and hobbies that the grandmother or person, it doesn't have to be a grandma that lives here. It could just be a person that likes a grandma theme and vibes. So I added a little knitting kit there. Obviously, technically, if you're going to actually have someone living here using the knitting kit, they would have to put it in their inventory, which is so annoying to me, but I still feel like having that there. Maybe just buy one tube and have that one in the inventory, and just have the other one as like a accessory that you just don't ever use. But I'm just putting in the last little bit of touches. I had decided for some reason to put a little heater in there. I don't know. I guess for one, it filled in the space, but then I also felt like, hey, it might be a person who's a little bit on the cold side, so have a nice little heater to some capacity in their room would be nice. And then, obviously we need to have a bookshelf. I did struggle with figuring out what bookshelf I wanted to be in there, because again, space wise and size wise, it was just getting to be a little too roomy in there. But that's kind of what I wanted to, but I just don't want to go too overboard with it, because again, once you start putting too much stuff in the build, it kind of prevents it from being functional again. So actually, it looks like I just changed my mind. Instead of a heater, they're just gonna have some extra blankets apparently. So I think I just added in a few more decoration bits and pieces, and obviously finish up the roof, and that's pretty much what the build is just like a nice little cozy place for anyone. It does not have to be a grandma, but that was kind of the theme and the vibe that I was going with, and so I hope you all enjoyed, and I definitely should be having another one of these out next week, and this week there should be a Lucid Legacy video out. As long as I get the video edited, which I should be able to get it edited here within the next couple of days, so that should be out sometime this week. And that is all I have for you guys for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again later this week and next week. So bye guys.